Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tiff4Tat. I am Tiff,
And I am Tat.
and today we have a very special guest with us, Brian Schweers from Salesforce. Brian, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, Brian Schweers. I am the SVP of Revenue Cloud Product Management. Been with Salesforce a little over 6 years. Been in the CPQ space for over 30 years, and at several companies that you would recognize, both on the software side and on the consulting side. So excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, great. Well, we're excited to have you. Thank you so much for doing this podcast with us. We're really happy that you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to start us out with a question. So, Brian, what is the difference between the term quote to cash and the term product to cash? And how would you describe Salesforce's solutions under those two umbrellas?
Yeah, I use them fairly interchangeably. I think the key for us is that quote to cash is really about the end user, the seller's experience, from creating a quote to converting it to an order to generating an invoice. And so it's very sort of one-dimensional quote to cash, where we started talking about product to cash because there's more constituents or personas involved in the revenue lifecycle management process than the seller creating quotes and orders. So product to cash starts to bring in the product data manager, the pricing analyst, sales ops or rev ops, invoicing it, contracts, legal, et cetera. So we think about product to cash in terms of of all the components and all of the constituents involved in supporting that quote to cash process, not just the quote to cash process itself. And I would say the other dynamic is that we've moved from direct selling exclusively in CPQ to direct selling, indirect selling, and self-service buying. So we now live in a world where not everything starts with a quote, right? We may start with an order, we may start with a shopping cart. So calling it quote to cash sort of limits the amount of problems we solve for business.
Love that. Love that.
I also have a question for you, Brian. You have been in the quote to cash, area, for a long time. What do you see the changes, that have been happening in this space in the last, few years, that you have seen, which direction do you see the industry going?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And I would say, building off my previous answer, it is this idea of a unified quote to cash system or product to cash system. We used to talk about customers consolidating from multiple CPQ systems to one CPQ, right? We've all been in a space long enough. We've walked into companies that say, yeah, we have 5 CPQs, right? And how do I get to one? I want one configurator, for example. And now we're talking about consolidating to a single product catalog that not just supports the CPQ effort, but the e-commerce effort, and various other capabilities. So we want a single product catalog. We want a single pricing engine. We want all of our multiple streams of income to flow through a common set of master data and a common set of transactional capabilities, right? And a lot of technology has changed along the way. Obviously, we use a lot of headless APIs. So being able to call pricing from a shopping cart or a quote or an order or even an opportunity is all possible. So we can sort of disassemble all the capabilities within what we traditionally called CPQ or quote to cash, and then put them back together in unique ways that solve problems that traditional CPQ never solved before. So I would say that's one thing. The other thing, and so the question then is, why are customers doing this? One is obviously manual processes need to be eliminated, take friction out of the system. Redundant data entry systems create points of failure. Synchronization isn't perfect, right? So lots of reasons technically I want to do this, but I think what's interesting is by unifying my master data and my transactional data, I now have a single source of truth for my entire book of business from lead to cash, right? And with the advent of data and AI, I now have information that can be used to do something that you could never do if all of the data was disjointed in multiple systems and spreadsheets and Word documents.
That's very interesting. You almost described my my current project. The customer. That's exactly what they're doing. They have multiple business unit or divisions. They are trying to consolidate so that the quote coming out from the company is is kind of unified. So that and the other thing that they're trying to do is trying to cross sell. Right now, they when they have different business units, when they send a quote to customer, they have to send multiple quotes. What they try to get to is also get to a single quote, so that they so if they need products from multiple business units, they can say, hey, we can quote everything in one quote. Now they may create different orders, but still it makes it much easier to work with the with the company if say, hey, we are quoting all the product in a single quote for you. That's interesting.
And I will say the other thing that we're seeing, and I don't know if you're seeing this as well, is that because we do a lot of recurring revenue business, that original quote may have come from a direct seller, but the amendment or renewal may want to have come through a self-service event, right? Through e-commerce or through an indirect selling motion. Maybe the partner is doing the add-on, right? And so as soon as you start opening this up to multiple channels, right? The customer the initial sale was complex, so I want a direct seller to help me. The renewal was easy. I want to do it myself, right? As soon as you start to do this, channel surfing, what we call omni-channel, then you've got to have a single source of truth for all that.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. So just to follow up to the changes in the industry in the last few years, I'm curious if you've seen a difference in the type of customers that are using these systems.
Absolutely. I think it's probably most interesting. When I started my career, before big machines, but it was all big machines, right? Everything you sold configurator solutions or CPQ, even before it was called CPQ, to companies that sold complex industrial equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what CPQ did. And at some point it did medical devices and telco equipment because that was also complex equipment, and in the comms industry. But what we see today, again, it goes back to this idea that CPQ has evolved into solving many more types of problems. I mentioned, recurring revenue, subscriptions, consumption models. We see the need for quote to cash or product to cash in every industry. At the end of the day, every business has products that have prices that they need to sell through one or more channels, right? Whether it's a higher ed, right? Universities have products and prices and they sell stuff, right? In hospitals. So every industry has a need for a revenue lifecycle management system. Most of them will tell you, no, we don't need CPQ. We don't sell anything that complex. But when you break down the components of what we're talking about here, they need all of them. They even need the quote. Right? They need product catalog, they need pricing, they need quotes, they need orders, they generate invoices, they collect payment, they probably have contracts, right? So the key for me was to think about how to take this thing that was very purpose-built to solve complex configured products and use it to what we started calling configure the deal instead of configure the product. And how can we then make it more democratized in a way that the heavy lift of implementing CPQ doesn't have to be there for somebody using these components to sell simple products on a website or through, various other channels.
Yeah, totally. I always find it fascinating what systems we're replacing when we do a Salesforce or CPQ implementation. I think the most interesting one that I replaced was Rolodexes, literal Rolodexes on people's desks, so yeah.
I haven't seen one of those in 20 years.
Well,
We
they're
run
out.
into a lot of spreadsheets also, just like,
Yeah, spreadsheets are the big one.
Excel's the big one for sure.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So you
So,
mentioned, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Oh, no, you.
No, I was ready to move on the next question, but
Go ahead.
you go ahead.
Move on to the next question.
Okay. Brian, coming from I work on Oracle product, pretty much most of the time. I here and there, I get introduced to to Salesforce a lot. But lately, I have been hearing a lot of things, a lot of talk about the Salesforce Revenue Cloud. I don't know too much about it. I just hear a lot of talk about it. But just for the viewers, can you give a more detailed explanation what is the Revenue Cloud and what does it what problem is that are you guys trying to solve with Revenue Cloud, and what is part of Revenue Cloud?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, over the years, Salesforce has acquired different companies, and we've had several products like Salesforce CPQ or Salesforce Billing, Salesforce Contracts, the industry solutions, all under this Revenue Cloud umbrella. And so they were all their own SKUs, and we marketed them as Revenue Cloud. But what we launched last February was a product that is now Revenue Cloud. And I was pretty excited about that. At Salesforce, you have Sales Cloud, Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and I had CPQ. So going from Salesforce CPQ to Revenue Cloud is a big deal because it tells you something about the scale of the product that we're offering. CPQ is a component of it, but the point is that our customers can now buy Revenue Cloud, and when they buy Revenue Cloud, they get our product catalog, our pricing engine, our CPQ capabilities. They get contracts, order management, which includes order decomposition and an order orchestration capability, and our invoice management, and sundry other pieces like DocGen and advanced approvals, et cetera. But the point is, we now have a single SKU that sells the entire product, and it is now one product. So we built this entirely on core. So we've moved out of all the different managed packages that were Salesforce CPQ and billing onto core platform, which means that our entire solution, our core objects on the Salesforce platform, it's all headless, it's all API first, and all of the user experiences are built with Lightning Web Components, which means the solution's also completely composable. Customers, and this was a challenge with our managed packages, there were user experiences that just could not be modified. Now everything is templatized. So you can add custom fields, you can leverage our APIs, you can build custom user experiences and sort of create your own path, right? Obviously, we've got an end-to-end solution out of the box, but especially in the enterprise market, the number one ask, and especially as you mentioned, Oracle, all of your customers, I imagine none of your customers use the standard UI that comes with Oracle CPQ.
Yeah, it's always some customization. We try to get to keep minimize the customization, but there's always some changes needed.
So what this then allows you to do is use Lightning Web Components to modify the experience.
Yeah.
And because it's just LWC, all the APIs have the logic in them. So I don't have to recode anything. I just connect this button to this part of the screen, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So all the objects are native Salesforce objects?
100%. Yes.
So like they are like all the Salesforce developers that they'll be more at home with those, right? Because if it's a managed package, sometimes they don't they have to learn it. But if it's a native API native package, they probably mix the
Yeah,
deployment.
and this is the big, one of the big selling points of it for for the developer is where with the managed package it was custom objects. That meant you had, and we used core objects too, but for example you had product 2, which is a core object, but then we had a bunch of custom objects that manage bundle structure, etc. Now
Yeah.
all of that is core objects. The entire product catalog is on core. What that means then is that Commerce Cloud can use it, Manufacturing Cloud can use it, Field Service can use it, where when it was in a managed package, only CPQ users can use it. Now they're core objects, core pieces of data that can be consumed by all of the other clouds on the Salesforce platform.
Just a follow-up question. How would this impact like existing Salesforce CPQ customers, and how would that impact them with that change? Do they have to re-implement or migrate? What's the migration process for that?
Well, they don't have to do anything. Salesforce CPQ and Salesforce billing continue to exist, and customers that are happy with those products can stay on those products and use them. If they see the value of migrating, we have some migration tools. And it is not a push button. And so we would, typically recommend a partner like y'all be involved in helping the customer with that migration. Because as you can imagine, it's, many years later, there's new technologies, there's new capabilities, there's new ways to manage data. So, and frankly, if you think about, all three of us, I'm sure, have done this before. We've migrated somebody from one CPQ tool to another. And even though it worked exactly right in whatever tool you came off of, that's not how I'd set up the product catalog in this tool. And so we want to think about what is the best way to optimize the product catalog for Revenue Cloud, which might be very different than how I would have optimized it in Salesforce CPQ. Same thing with pricing engine, config. So we want to think about, how do I take most advantage of these new capabilities rather than just lifting and shifting data. So that's part of the migration. We want to think of it like, I still want to phase 0. Let's start with, how would I reimagine what I've done in Salesforce CPQ if I was to do it again in Revenue Cloud, which is the same question I'd ask if they were to do it again anywhere else. Then what we've done is we've worked with various partners to build data migration capabilities that are templatized. So once you've decided how you want to use the new product catalog, moving the data from A to B is relatively easy. The bigger question is what should I do? How should I use the new tool? Right?
Yep. Yeah, and we have the same point of view you do, Brian, is that it shouldn't just be a lift and shift, because in addition to it being different tools, businesses evolve. Businesses have products, new pricing structures, new ways that they look at their own business. And so Tat, we've done a lot of stuff on the Salesforce side at Pierce Washington to think about what it would take to get a customer from Salesforce CPQ to the new Revenue Cloud. And part of it is, just the technical details of like, okay, if you have this field populated in the product 2 record and Salesforce CPQ, what does that map to? That part, again, is the easy part. The not harder part, but the more involved part is talking to the customer. Okay, what are your pain points? Walk me through your business process from beginning to end. What do you like about your current system? What do you not like about your current system? What are the pain points? What can we clean up? And how do we give you a system that you're really going to get your return on investment on?
Yeah, and I'll give you a great example of that, just off the top of my head, is the way we're using product attributes and price attributes is very different than how CPQ did it. And you could create attributes, you could create custom fields, whatever in CPQ, but we've created this catalog hierarchy that allows us to create product catalog level attributes that then are inherited by the SKUs you create within there. and then we've productized the whole price attribution capability. Therefore, it means that a customer may not need as many features and options in their bundle structure as before, because now red, blue, green can affect price as an attribute rather than as a SKU. And so we want to start to think about, right, one of our classic processes that we implement CPQ is, how do we eliminate SKU proliferation? And some of the new capabilities in Revenue Cloud inherently improve that ability to manage SKU proliferation by using some of these new capabilities that weren't available before, right? So it's something as simple as that is, could this be a 500 line bundle instead of a 5,000 line bundle if I use attributes, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think, I'm very excited to see that, like you have one solution kind of, from quoting to contract. Sounds like everything is in this, Revenue Cloud. That's a very exciting development, because a lot of customers, I see that, they do want to do, that whole chain of, of a business process improvement.
Absolutely.
So,
And by the way, it's all on the same cloud. So the Salesforce administrator that can manage the administration of contracts and can manage CPQ, right? So I don't have to learn a new set of tools as a Salesforce admin or Salesforce developer. Everything we're using is the same thing they're already certified on.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, Brian, you mentioned AI earlier, and I am wondering, what use cases are you seeing for AI in Revenue Cloud and in quoting, and how does Agentforce come into play?
Yeah, so Agentforce is obviously a big part of our story now here at Salesforce. And what's interesting is the way we built Revenue Cloud, and I'd like to say we were smart enough to have that foresight, but as it turns out, we might have been lucky enough. But either way, what we've built is exactly ready for data and AI. And so we're sort of architected. It just, the timing turned out to be perfect for us, that there's very little, if any, rework required to leverage Agentforce within Revenue Cloud. And so what we've been talking about is, what are examples of how Agentforce could support the various personas that consume Rev Cloud. The most obvious is the seller. So we'll start there. So you think about a seller is in Sales Cloud and they're using Agentforce already to help them manage their leads, their opportunities. The agent is sitting on the call with them. It's collecting unstructured data, creating call summaries, etc., right? And now I get the opportunity advanced far enough to where I want to create a quote, and the agent can help me create that quote because it knows everything that's in the C360, the structured data, but it also has access to all the unstructured data from all these call summary reports. And therefore, the agent should be able to help the rep create the quote. I mean, think about guided selling with agent-assisted guided selling, right? Now that I've created the quote, I start to go in a negotiation process. I need to know something about propensity to buy, right? So yes, based on the call logs, I know something about what the customer needs, but based on their installed base, I know something about what they already have. And I can put these things together to create the ideal quote for them, to think about cross-sell, upsell, to understand propensity to buy and price it, and then to present it to them. But that's just the buyer. We also have the legal department that may be working on an MSA or an SOW. So how can Agentforce help? Right, we already have AI enabled in contracts, so we're managing clause libraries, et cetera. But how do I make that more conversational, so there's a conversation between the sales rep and the legal team in terms of what needs to be done, and frankly, and probably the legal team at the customer, right? We think about redlining in contracts. Well, how could Agentforce help with that redlining process to get to the final negotiated version of an MSA, for example. What about billing? Do I have billing agents? Can I use Agentforce to help me with dunning and collections? Right? Imagine if I'm using Agentforce to help me put together a list of collection notices and actually write the emails for me. Right? So and then I go back to the product data manager and a pricing analyst. New SKUs are created all the time. Can the product data manager use Agentforce to automate the process of creating SKUs? Again, there's a human in the loop, but can they help me make the description better? Or if I'm doing pricing, which one of my prices in my price book are working effectively and which ones are not? Which ones should I take action on? What types of action should I take? These are all areas where data and AI can help our customers supercharge Revenue Cloud once they've got it up and running, right?
I love that. I love the admin side of that, of course, but definitely for
Yeah, the
customers.
care and feeding of a CPQ is huge, right? I mean, we all know that. And so why not help those people as well, right?
Yeah, totally. I think the biggest thing that I see is a desire to use AI in pricing. So using historical data, how many times has a certain product been discounted? What is it usually discounted to? Or I also have clients who sometimes can access competitor data. So the competitors' quotes or bids are public information after a certain period of time. So of course they're collecting that information and they really want to be able to use that information with AI to price their own products in the future.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and all of that is possible. And in with Data Cloud, you could use the near copy to bring in that external data and make it available to the agent as well.
love that. Tat, have you seen anything like that on the Oracle side?
Oracle does have something, like all the quotes that are created in in Oracle. They do keep track of that historical data, and they do present that to the to the sales reps, so that they can gauge on did I give them too much discount? Am I pricing too high? That that there's no chance for me to to win the deal. So that kind of information is available, but a lot of customers they're a little bit reluctant on using that data because they're not sure how accurate the data is, because even though the quotes are in the system and we are pretty good, we feel pretty good about it, but the problem is a lot of times is when the deal is won, sometimes they don't know if it's a partial one, they partially win the deal, or did they did the agent not disposition the opportunity, or so that they don't know how accurate the won and loss status is. That's the kind of thing that people worry about, but anyway, I think hopefully AI kind of improves that. If they if they may have some automation that maybe when an order is placed against a quote, obviously they won something, right? So that's the kind of thing that if AI can say, okay, maybe automatically disposition the opportunity, that will be kind of thing that probably be helpful. I think that's the reluctance on people adopting it, because they don't know how reliable the data is.
And I just have to say, what you just described is the beauty of having the entire system in a single cloud that all works together seamlessly out of the box. Because when you convert the quote to an order, it is closed won, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, when you're dealing with multiple systems, then you've got to figure out when do I synchronize them or whatever. But yeah, when it's all on one platform. I also know when I generated invoice and when I received cash and when I paid the rep, right?
Yeah. In that case, there's no question, right? You definitely won the deal, so.
Yeah.
Tat, you want to take the next question?
Yeah, sure. When I first started, most of my projects in manufacturing, but and talking to Tiffany, she's been telling me that most of her projects actually subscription based, and it's all and at the beginning, and now it's more and more manufacturing. I just want to see, from your perspective, how do you see the the trend in as far as CPQ, what direction do you see is going? It seems like Tiffany is seeing one thing and I'm seeing the opposite.
I would say I'm seeing both. It's interesting that the SaaS excuse me, the SaaS business started, obviously software as a service, the subscription business, I should say. And so most recurring revenue products historically were not physical goods, but that's changing. And what we're seeing today is companies providing a product as a service. And so I have several customers that build and ship complex equipment, but they monetize it on a consumption basis, right? And so we see these things coming together where tech companies are selling equipment as a service, but manufacturing companies are looking for ways to increase the amount of recurring revenue within their portfolio. And so it could be an extended warranty contract. There's no equipment anymore that doesn't have some digital component to it, right? So there's software in your vehicle. There's software in everything. And so you start to see, in fact, when I recently bought my wife a new vehicle, it had a 1-year subscription to the XM radio, right? And then you had to renew the subscription. My truck has a Wi-Fi. It came with a free 1 year of Wi-Fi. And so we see this more and more that equipment manufacturers, if you're driving a tractor, it's got GPS on it, right? There's all kinds of software or technology, let's say, on these pieces of equipment, which means now that I'm going to configure and ship a piece of hardware, a physical good, but I'm also going to provision software that needs updates, that can be sold as a subscription, that there's add-ons to. So I'm going to, I bought my tractor and it had this basic navigation capability on it, but now I want to put in crop rotation software. I don't know, making it up, right? And so how do I do from the dashboard of my tractor, add this additional piece of software? And that's this idea of truly being omni-channel, that not only are we doing it in an e-commerce site or on a CRM tool, but we're able to do it in app. Just like when you're watching Netflix and you decide to buy a movie. You don't go to netflix.com to buy the movie. You do it with your remote control, right? So why can't you do it from the dashboard of your car or from the screen of your point of sale machine or whatever the case may be? And this is what we're seeing, is that this subscription or recurring revenue component is becoming integrated with the physical goods, and therefore your revenue cloud solution needs to also be able to support both physical goods and digital goods, right? And services as well. It could be professional services. So this is a big part of that. I mentioned earlier, the order orchestration and decomposition, is we're able to sell this shared product and service and then decompose it into multiple fulfillment engines. So I may send Oracle or SAP the physical good, the equipment to be built and shipped, but I may send a pro services tool the SOW, the details for the SOW, so they can create the work breakdown structure, manage the project, whatever, right? Or to a digital fulfillment capability. And then I can actually orchestrate all of that, because the physical good needs to ship and arrive on site before I can dispatch technicians to install it. And the installers need to finish their job before I can activate the software and start monetizing the subscription. So by bringing all these unique pieces together, I really can take this whole revenue lifecycle management capability to another level. So I think that's a big change that we're seeing. I will say, in the manufacturing space with Salesforce specifically, we also have manufacturing cloud, right? And so we have some customers that have used CPQ and manufacturing cloud together. I know you guys have helped a couple implement that integrated solution. But what we've done with RevCloud, I go back to what I said earlier, there's now everything's on core. So everything we sell with Revenue Cloud, if you want to do traditional quote to cash or product to cash with RevCloud in a manufacturing cloud instance, you can do that. But because manufacturing cloud has other capabilities like sales agreements and rebate management or trade promotion management, they now can use the same product catalog, the same pricing tools within their capabilities that we use within ours. So again, it's not just selling this piece of equipment across multiple channels. It's now using the same product catalog and price engine for things that are sold in a completely different way. That's not CPQ related, like a sales agreement, right? So I think that's an interesting avenue for us, is that we start to support the manufacturing sector, not only in their CPQ capabilities with this new tool, but also through the integration with the capabilities that exist within the manufacturing cloud itself. And I would be remiss to not mention the same with Comms Cloud or any health cloud, et cetera, right? But so the same is true in those other industries, but specifically to manufacturing cloud, I think that's a good example.
Yeah, I love that. We're big manufacturing cloud fans around here, so that's great to hear. Okay, one last question for you, and then we'll turn it around if you have a couple questions for us. What makes you passionate about helping customers solve their revenue systems?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the thing that's kept me in this career for 30 years is I want to say everyone's a puzzle. Everyone is different. Every time, and you guys, I'm sure, experience this as well. Every customer need is unique. And the key is to have a set of tools that support their uniqueness without everybody being truly a snowflake, right? Their needs may be unique, but that doesn't mean they all need custom software. So how do we build a tool that allows everybody to consume it in a way that meets their use case needs? But as you mentioned earlier, Tiff, they change, right? Companies evolve over time. So as they evolve, back in the day, you hard coded everything, and now I've got this new product, and well, this CPQ, and this is how you got to 5 CPQs. Well, this one doesn't work. I need a new one for that, right? Well, what if the tool is composable and it allows me to introduce new products, new go-to-market initiatives, and deploy them on this same platform? So I think that's part of it. And I'll go back to this earlier conversation. Traditionally, CPQ was for make to order, engineer to order, configure to order, whatever to order, whatever letter you want to put in front of to order. It was all custom stuff, right? We were it was all about the configurator. Pricing and quoting was secondary. It was the configurator, right? And that's changed. And so for me, it was about efficiency. Back in the day, pre-CPQ, product configurator was something an engineer used to configure something. Sales would call engineering, they'd go in their product configurator, they'd configure it, because that was easier than doing a drawing, let's say. Maybe they still needed a drawing. But then somebody else had to go price it, and then they could put it into a quote and send it to the customer, right? So fast forward, we now have reps doing that themselves. And we're now talking about agents actually doing it with them or for them, right? And so we remove so much friction from the business. We're able to provide the customer with a better, more accurate, more meaningful quote faster. We're able to make adjustments to their changing needs or the dynamic, right? Obviously, everybody gets a vote. So now that I've shared the quote with my purchasing department, they have some other ideas of what I should buy for, right? So all of those things happen, and the ability to have a tool that's flexible enough to rapidly make those changes through the negotiation and close cycle, I think is important. And then of course we expand into these different industries. I mentioned introduce AI, and then the channels, right? This idea, and I think a lot of it we saw from COVID, that the buyers and sellers are no longer face to face as often as they used to be. So how do I use technology to collaborate through that, buying, selling cycle, whether it's through, Commerce Cloud or Sales Cloud or Service Cloud, right? So we really open this up to a much larger community and solve problems that the traditional CPQ didn't. Maybe it could have solved, but the lift to get CPQ was so great that if you didn't need product configurator, you weren't going to implement CPQ. Now you can, right? Maybe you need a lightweight config or whatever, right? So I think that's an interesting dynamic. And I guess the overarching point is, in 30 plus years, it's evolved many times. And I'm sure, Tat, you've seen the same thing, this evolution over your career.
Yeah, it has changed quite a bit, over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, Brian. Okay, well, do you have any questions for us? Put us in the hot second.
Absolutely. And I think, just working through the conversation we had, and Tiff, since you're working with a lot of our Salesforce customers, I'd love to know how everything we just talked about aligns with and you kind of already alluded to this, with some of the projects you guys are involved in. And so I mentioned a phase 0 as starting there rather than a lift and shift. Is that something you do? Or, what new and interesting ways are you seeing customers use CPQ? And what do you think about, what are they asking for in terms of AI? What are your customers asking for when it comes to how Agentforce can help?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take the first one first. Phase 0, definitely always a phase 0, no matter what the project is. I think that there is an amount of investment, whether that's a small investment or a large investment on the part of a company to implement a new system. So if they're going to make an investment, very few, if any, customers want the same exact thing that they already built and they already have, so it really does take a consulting firm and consultants to get in there and talk with them and find out what their business does, what is the process from beginning to end, how many entry points do they have, like you talked about omni-channel, right? So how many entry points does a business have for these sales that they're making, right? And then how do all of those funnel into ultimately an ERP system that's going to do order fulfillment, whatever that means for that customer. So yes, a resounding yes, 1000%, always do a phase 0. What's that?
I'm happy to hear that.
Yes. Otherwise, what do we do?
People want to just jump right in and put their hands on the keyboard.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love being hands on keyboard, but for sure, you got to make sure that what you're doing on the keyboard gives some value to the business. It's all about bringing value to the business, making people's jobs easier, more efficient, more effective, and letting other people be able to rely on others more. Like I talk to finance people a lot, even though we're not implementing ERP systems. I always want to talk to the finance people because I want to make sure that what the salesmen are doing or the saleswomen are doing is relevant and matches what finance needs whenever that ultimately becomes an order. And then the other thing you mentioned is AI. So definitely pricing. So historical pricing, using that in order to fuel current pricing, also competitor pricing to fuel, future pricing. That's a big, big ask that people want as far as AI. I do think, and everybody kind of realizes that it has its limitations, right? So an AI agent would have a very difficult time figuring out something like COVID or COVID pricing, right? That was an anomaly if, for sure. But But like you said, like looping in a human, right? They want a starting point. What is the margin in this particular market that a person can expect to sell a certain item? That's really big too, is location-based pricing. How does it change per market? And then the other things you mentioned, writing up emails or responses to certain things, or creating quotes with the products already populated on there, or guided selling, using AI through guided selling. I think that all really aligns well with what I've seen in the market too from customers.
Awesome. So Tat, you've got a little bit different experience, and I think what's interesting is you've been doing the same product for several years with Pierce Washington. And so I'm assuming you have a lot of customers that you've been with for many years. You probably have some new customers where you're implementing, but there's probably some that you've been through different iterations with. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first started, doing in this line of work, most customers, they just say, oh, we have, a huge spreadsheet here that, this guy maintained, and nobody knows about it and how it works. But, this guy, probably retire soon, that's a very typical scenario. And we want to make sure that, going forward, we have, everything systematically, implemented so that the rules are in the system, so that we are not relying on one person's knowledge. So most of at the beginning, a lot of customers is like that. They're usually manufacturing, or companies that are they have very specialized products that maybe 4 or 5 people knows the product inside out, but everybody else, they always go to those people. That's kind of projects that we face a lot at the beginning. But nowadays, I think people, in those days, when we implement a configurator, they say, oh, we only want the internal people, agents, to use it. We don't, there's no way for the customers to figure this out. Even though we ask a question, they wouldn't even know what to answer. That's kind of mentality. In those days. Nowadays, I think it's very different. I'm seeing more and more customers say, hey, we have this configurators. We've already implemented. It's pretty easy to use. And, I mean, can we expose that to for our customers? I mean, we have I have we're building a commerce store. We want to, make this set of product available for these customers. That's the kind of thing that, I see a lot. In fact,
So it's that same idea of channel surfing, where maybe I bought the piece of equipment,
definitely,
sales motion, but now I need spare parts, or I want to accessorize it, or whatever.
Yeah,
but I need to know what's going to fit my
exactly.
equipment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also say, even just for parts, just people would think that it'd be pretty easy to to say, hey, if a part's broken, it's pretty easy to find. But for a complicated machine, there may be many parts that look alike.
That's right.
And
That's right.
and if you don't, a lot of people are reluctant to buy it, even though they find the part number. The part look the same. They may they still say, is it really the part? They want to see an exploded diagram to say, hey, that's the part that they drew down, and then say, this is the part that that I took it out of my machine. That's when they get to that level of of knowledge, they say, I feel comfortable that this is the right part. So that is kind of thing that a traditional catalog doesn't offer you that. Just a list of parts is not very helpful. So a lot of times the enhanced catalog, and then also the way that if they configure the part themselves before, then they will have a lot more confidence and say, hey, I know what I have bought previously. Then they'll be more comfortable in doing additional business with you. That's the kind of thing that a lot of manufacturers are moving towards. Nowadays, that a lot of times, we always see the customers say, hey, we are doing CPQ, but commerce is in the roadmap. That's our phase 2. That's very, very common to see these days.
So let me ask you, I think we're getting probably close to time here. building on what you just said, I'm wondering, what are your customers thinking of in terms of their most important next steps? You talked about some things that are happening recently, but what are they asking you for about in the future?
Most of my customers, the commerce part,
The
because
commerce.
most of my customers are they have CPQ, and
Yeah.
they want the bring the customer self-service is a big, it's always come up. They say, hey, we want to offload a lot of these these things that that the sales rep do, that are really, the customer can really get online and do it themselves. They want to offload that from from the sales sales rep or support, so that the people can self-service. That's that's a big thing for a lot of the
So
company.
do you see a demand for AI in your customers as well?
Definitely, because if you, a lot of the things in the looking through a catalog is not an easy thing. When if you have AI to guide them through that, definitely would be a a plus. A lot of times they when a part breaks, right, they don't even know exactly what break. If you can point them to the area, that will be helpful. And sometimes even for new sales, a lot of times like people who work with the product day to day, that it's very easy to them to say, hey, this is the product that you need. But a lot of times customers come into your website and say, I know what I want to do, but I don't really know what product I need. That part, I think if AI can step in to say, hey, provide me some guidance to say, if I can describe my problem, then tell me, what possible product I can I can look into. That will narrow down their search. When you do a catalog search with 500,000 products in there, it's not easy to find the one you want.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the time with you guys today. What else you got for
Yeah.
me?
Yeah,
No,
thank you very much for joining us. This is really informative.
yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I feel like we could spend all day just nerding out with you, but I
Fortunately,
appreciate
I have
you.
another meeting.
Yeah, no problem. So if listeners want to contact you, how could they reach out to you?
Probably best to find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll
Make
put
sure
your
you
link.
spell it. You see my name there, Brian with a O. They
Yeah,
won't find me unless they know it's Brian, Brion Schweers.
perfect.
Yeah,
We'll
they
put your
can find me
LinkedIn
on
profile in
LinkedIn.
the show notes too. Yeah, perfect.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, and yeah, we're excited. Thanks again.
And of
All
course,
right,
to learn
thank
more
you.
about Revenue Cloud, they can go to salesforce.com and look up Revenue Cloud and ask for more information there as well.
Yeah, perfect.
All
All
right.
right.
Thanks.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.